Salam, welcome to Just Some Brothers, where we discuss the happenings of the Muslim world. Now, it's been a long time since we did our last podcast. It's been about 4 weeks. I'm that brown guy, and I'm with my co-host, brother Abu Shanks.
Assalamualaikum everyone. It has been a while since we did the last one. I hope everyone's well.
Brother Abu Shanks, in our last podcast, which is about a month ago, a lot has happened since then. In the last podcast, we were talking more about Syria, and we did say we wanted to do a podcast on Gaza. But since Gaza and Syria, a lot has happened, we decided to talk about both issues in one go. So we'll start off with Gaza, inshallah. And obviously, we know there's a ceasefire, and that I think it's on its third week now, the ceasefire. And in the ceasefire, it has 3 stages. Each one release hostages, humanitarian aid, and taking away the rubble and tents and all of these things. In that time, we've seen a lot happen. We've seen that Israel has not fulfilled its side of the ceasefire. It's killed up to 26 Palestinians, according to Hamas. Other reports say probably 127. We're seeing this has been recorded just before the deadline where Trump said you need to release all the hostages, otherwise we're going to bring hell. So what I want to ask to start the discussion is, what is this hell that Trump is talking about, and why have the ceasefire when we look at the ceasefire, it gave all opportunities for Israel to basically break it?
So when this first started off, so let's continue from when the ceasefire started. When the ceasefire started off, there was lots of political commentators who said that within the ceasefire, the way it's been laid out in the 3 stages is ample opportunity for Israel to abandon the ceasefire. And there are even reports of Benjamin Netanyahu telling his cabinet that actually I'm not going to fulfill the ceasefire, I'm just doing this for now. So it was well known that Israel was trying to find a way out from the ceasefire as it was. Then you had Trump come in, inauguration happens, Trump is now president, Benjamin Netanyahu goes to Washington, visits Trump, and while the news reporters and stuff are talking to Trump, you have to keep in mind what Trump's like. He'll follow the script to a certain extent, and then he just says the first thing that comes to his head. He'll just say what he thinks should happen. So the first thing that he said was that actually Gaza, the Palestinians, they should all be removed, basically ethnically cleansed, either into Egypt or into Jordan, or both of those countries, and Saudi should take some. And he's going to build a nice real estate, he's going to build fancy houses and casinos and all of this type of stuff. This is on Fox News, by the way. When the Fox anchor first challenged him on it, saying, are the Palestinians going to be allowed to return? He said, no, why would they be allowed to return? We're going to give them another lovely place in Egypt, in Jordan, or in Saudi. So why should they be returned? This is basically ours. He's then subsequently made the point that we're just going to take Gaza, i.e. the Americans are going to take Gaza. Who's going to want to live there? There's all this rubble there. When Benjamin Netanyahu came on, anyone who saw that interview, you could see the smug look on his face, because Trump just kept repeating these types of things, which is, we are going to take Gaza. In that, while this is happening, you have Hamas saying that Israel has violated the ceasefire more than 200 times. So individual incidences of them violating the ceasefire. Hamas has kept to their side of the ceasefire, releasing hostages as designated, 3 on one particular day, another 4 on another day, etc. etc. Israel has released its prisoners, Palestinian prisoners as well. And one of the things you notice about that exchange is that the Israeli prisoners are looked after very well. They look very, very healthy, even to the extent they're smiling and laughing. Whereas if you look at the Palestinian prisoners, from when they went in to when they come out, they've completely shrunk, they've become really skinny, it's almost like their eyeballs are falling out of their, some of them can't stand properly, etc, etc. So you've got all of this playing. Then you have Trump saying that actually we're just going to take Gaza. Now that creates a furore across the Muslim world, to the extent that Egypt, that Jordan, and Saudi actually released a press statement. Like, you have to imagine, MBS doesn't release anything. He releases a press statement saying, no, the Palestinians are going to be staying in Gaza. we're not taking any, basically we're not taking any. Jordan doesn't agree to it. Egypt doesn't agree to it. Over the last couple of days, this has escalated, where even though King Abdullah was in Washington and he was sitting like a mug next to Trump, and Trump is saying, you're going to take the Palestinians, aren't you? You're going to take them. He couldn't bring himself to say it. He ended up saying, well, we're going to take, but he's just there.
Before we go that
away
far, we
like
know
a
the king of
muppet.
tomatoes and what he decided to do. Yeah, our action hero, as it all, he likes making videos of that. Just to go back a bit, because you made a lot of points. Now, obviously, some are saying that, look, Trump, his tongue is wet when he heard he's a property developer. End of the day, that's his background. So when he saw the opportunity for the real estate possible in Gaza, he took that, and he just released himself like, we'll do what we need to do there. In fact, if people want to see his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, he earlier in the year, he was saying things like, that Gaza is great real estate, and really what we should do is, look, we should, I'm going to say it, people might not like it, but we need to move these people out and make Gaza into basically what they call a Riviera. So all of these things, you can see they were planning it way before. I know there's other things that people said, things like the Ben Gurion Canal that they want to do, the gas and oil that they found just outside the sea. I want to make this point where this is just secondary. This is just secondary because Israel always wanted Gaza, the West Bank. They want all of that, and we're going to get into the West Bank in a second. Because it was in my first question is, when he said we're going to bring hell again. Yeah, remember, this statement ain't the first. He said that just before he came into the White House, said, look, if the ceasefire is not put into place, if Hamas doesn't agree to it, we're going to bring hell. Now, I think people need to know what that means.
I mean, when Trump says we're going to bring hell, it can mean we're going to bomb Gaza again, and we're going to literally bomb all of it. It can mean we're going to absolutely sanction the place when nothing gets in and nothing gets out, and we're going to force people out. It's not clear what he means by hell, in the sense of what he does mean is that the Palestinians are going to suffer. How they're going to suffer, he'll work it out, basically. But I think the important thing to understand about Trump is he says a lot of stuff. He's saying we're going to bring hell. So, if you go back to the point you were making, where right at the beginning, before he becomes president, he says to them, I'm going to bring this to an end, and Hamas has to agree to the ceasefire. And he kept reiterating that. Everybody knew that Hamas had already agreed to the ceasefire. It was Israel that hadn't agreed to the ceasefire, but it was being made out that Hamas hadn't agreed. The reason I say that is because what Trump does, the way he plays, and you can even see that with the tariffs, is that he will say something. So he will go to the extreme, and he will say, I'm going to place tariffs on you. I'm going to bring hell on you to start the negotiation. Yeah? And then people will come to what they regard as a reasonable position. So the two-state solution. Hamas have agreed. Hamas have said they will release hostages tomorrow. They've accepted that. They've said, we're going to release some of the hostages. Now, Hamas would have already probably done that. Then Trump will make out as if, see, because I said all of that, I made them do this. Whereas actually, in reality, no, they were going to do that anyway. They were just playing to the gallery. And that's the thing. Trump, in some of these areas, shouldn't be taken that seriously. And I'll tell you why I say that, It's simply because there's one thing Trump's saying it. There's another thing is, what is the policy of America? What is the policy of the European Union? What is the policy of the UN? The reason all these things matter is because you need these people, the institutions in America, the European Union, the United Nations, and the countries in the region to accept it, because they're the ones that execute the plan. So as an example, if Georgian just says we're not taking anyone or we're not going to accept it, he can't push them in. It's not going to work. But the way he plays it is that I say something, in reality he'll say, I'm going to bring hell to the country, and that generally means I'm just going to bring more violence. He plays to a gallery, then people come to what they regard as a reasonable position, which for me isn't, like a two-state solution. And then what happens, he says, see, I brought them to the table. But actually they were going to do that anyway. And what happens is people concentrate on, see, he said this, he said that, without realizing actually the plan in origin was to do what they were doing anyway. So think of the tariffs against Canada and Mexico, He said at first, I'm going to put 25% tariffs. Canada and Mexico then said, you do that, we're going to retaliate. Within 24 hours to 48 hours, then he makes a phone call to Canada, he speaks with Justin Trudeau, and then he issues a statement, Trump does, saying, see, I got Canada to accept. And then the Canadians just say, not really, what we agreed to is what we were going to do anyway. We were going but to his base in America, it looks like, yeah, see, Trump is doing something, he's our man, etc., etc., etc. Whereas actually in reality, none of that's happening. The important thing that's going to happen tomorrow is the response of Israel. Because Benjamin Netanyahu and his cabinet do not want this ceasefire to last. They want it to end. The reason they want it to end is because they want to go back in and they want to finish the job off. Do you see? But Benjamin Netanyahu has his own problems. So he has a problem with, obviously he's on trial, the courts are trying to get him. Another problem is the IDF, the Israeli military, doesn't want to go back into Gaza because they've lost too many people, too many soldiers. So if you look at official IDF records, they say we've lost about 900. So they say we've lost about 900 soldiers. The other day there was a report by one of the chief of staffs of the IDF saying that they've lost 6,000 soldiers, have been killed since October the 7th. 6,000, an odd 15,000 have been injured. So the the military doesn't want to go back in. So
is that where we're saying, like,
tension.
We saw Trump say he's willing to send American troops?
So Trump, he, as I understand it, he said that he's going to bring hell onto Gaza. I didn't see him say he's going to bring troops. Some people interpreted it like that, but many Republicans in Congress have made it very clear there will be no American soldiers in Gaza. They're not going to have American soldiers. So, I'm not sure that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen tomorrow. I think the ceasefire will continue. We'll find out tomorrow. It will continue. But the thing to understand is the ceasefire, and I mentioned this before, is patchwork. The occupation still exists. So even if the ceasefire continues and you get through to the second phase, Gaza has completely been annihilated, especially the north of it. Trying to rebuild that country or rebuild that strip, say actually, and for people to get back to their normal lives. There was a report in the Lancet today saying that the life expectancy of Gaza before October the 7th was 70 years. It's now gone down to 45 years. So that's how much they expect people to live at the age of 45. That's the amount of damage that's been done. That's putting aside the fact that hospitals don't exist, universities don't exist, schools don't exist. How are people supposed to live, even if they want to?
You love going too far ahead, yeah? I keep having to bring you back. So stop going too far ahead, yeah? We'll get to that, yeah? Because some of this, I want to connect it to our rulers in the Muslim world. But before we get there, what you talked about Trump here, and when he just expresses himself, when he gets too excited, yeah, are we seeing a problem or a conflict of the deep state and Trump administration? Because the reason I say this is because, look, the deep state, there's no way you can push people out. These people have been fighting for over 100 years to have their land. And now you have this apprentice guy coming along and saying, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to push them out and all the rest of it. Yeah. Now, the reason I said the thing about hell, because there's been a lot of reports and podcasts and news where we know that, the Biden administration, the little that they did was they didn't give particular weapons to Israel. So the 2,000-pound bomb, the mother of all bombs, as they call it, they restricted that. They allowed all of these weapons. Now, whether this is psychological, yeah, to show Hamas, now, yeah, it's no hold barred. We're just going to come in, we'll drop these bombs. If you hide in your tunnels, this can go 30 meters deep. So it doesn't matter where you hide, whether we're going to use depleted uranium and all the rest of it. Now, we can talk about the iman of our brothers and sisters in Gaza, yeah? It's next level. As far as I'm concerned, you can bring all of that. They don't care. What else is left for them, yeah? But we can get to that later. So this psychological, it could be a psychological warfare. It could be exactly what you're saying. But going back to the question is, are we seeing a conflict between the deep state and the Trump administration, knowing that he did say that he wants to take out the CIA, which we know the CIA uses US aid to to take their ideas into other countries, such as the LGBTQ and funding particular dictators, giving weapons and all of that. A lot of that is done by US aid. So are we seeing a conflict?
Yes, I mean, that conflict existed in his first term as well. So remember with the FBI, and I forgot the FBI director's name, something Comey, I think James Comey. He got into a lot of conflict with established institutions in America. So at that time it was the FBI. He got into trouble with the judges, the courts, etc. And that's not going to change this time round. I mean, this time round the problem, not the problem, but the situation is that the deep state are more prepared for him, because last time they weren't exactly sure what was going to happen. And in some cases, Trump's hand is a lot stronger because he has both Congress and he has the popular support. So he's basically won it all. So he's very popular in America. So, you can't exactly go against him on what basis. So there is that element. But I think in the Gaza issue, the deep state isn't going to get involved in the sense of, okay, if he wants to, let him. It doesn't really affect us. It's foreign policy. They're more interested in domestic stuff. They're worried about what he wants to do domestically, trying to strip these departments, change effectively how America works. That's the way they're looking at it. With Gaza, it's more to do with, he's looking at it, I'm Trump. He's literally looking at Israel and thinking, that's my ally. This is who I'm supporting them. In the same way in his first term, he moved the capital, the US embassy, to Jerusalem, and it created massive hoo-ha. But then what happened? Nothing happened, as in everyone just accepted it, isn't it? Yeah. After all of the hoo-ha, it's just that hasn't gone back. It's still there. So in that sense, Trump, yes, he will. But the one thing he will do stuff. But the one thing he won't do is he won't put American soldiers there, because his whole policy has been, I don't want to be a wartime president in the sense of I start wars. I end wars. Now, when he says I end wars, he might drop a nuke to end the war, but I'm going to end the war. So it's a possibility that Israel will heavily bomb the Gaza Strip again. It's a massive possibility that they will try and annex the West Bank. The problem that Israel currently has is that public opinion in Israel wants the hostages out. They want the hostages released. Hostages' families are demanding that no, you stick to the ceasefire because it's releasing hostages. And the problem Benjamin Netanyahu has is, in his cabinet, he has some, you hear the normal names, well, he's left now, Smotrich, that they want to basically annex more than just.
Well, they want all of the West Bank and the Gaza
Strip.
Yeah.
They want Gaza Strip, and they want more, yeah? But there are others who are thinking, no, this has been bad for Israel. We have lost lots of, you have to imagine, it's permanently damaged Israel's image. It's everything we knew about that Israel was pumping to the world, that we're under attack, we're the civilized people, we follow international law, we follow human rights, there's a Holocaust being happened against us, they just hate us because we're Jews, etc., etc., etc. It's been turned on its head, and you are basically being accused by the ICC and others of committing a genocide, the people who always complain about Holocaust. You're the ones who are committing the genocide, and they can't shake that off. That's why Trump
we'll get to that,
sanctioned
America's image in the world.
Do you see? Yeah. So that's why I'm saying would I be surprised if Israel starts bombing Gaza again? No, because they've been killing people
the last 100 years. I think
anyway.
people forget.
100 years. So that wouldn't surprise me. Would I be surprised if they use these big bombs on Gaza? No, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they will do, when I say Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu will do whatever it takes, whatever's in his interest, to make sure he stays in power. If that means he has to drop these big bombs on Gaza, he will do it. Like I said, the only issue is that if you're trying to move these people out, and that's what Trump wants, he's constantly articulated, I want these people to be taken to other countries. That is not going to be backed by the populace in these countries at all. There will be uproar. Even the rulers, the traitorous rulers in those lands know that there will be uproar in our lands.
Now that you said that, I want to get into the rulers. Before we go, I do also want to talk about Syria, but before we go there, there's a couple of things that what should Hamas's response be? I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about America's image around the world. What I mean by its image, all this human rights, freedom, and all the rest of it. How badly has that been damaged? But before we go there, what has been the response of our rulers? Right now, we're seeing this heavy stance from Egypt, the king of tomato in Jordan, and the concert,
The Clown
the
Prince.
concert and entertainment guy, MBS. Their response has been strong. It's been strong in the sense that we're not going to take these guys in. So, are we looking at a sudden strength from these rulers, or is there something behind the scenes going on?
It's not strength. I mean, they don't do anything for them, for the Muslim Ummah. They do stuff to protect their own thrones. So there's a couple of things. The first thing is, like I said, their populace, the Muslim population, the Muslim Ummah in these countries will not accept it. It's not that they won't accept Palestinians to come in to these countries. They won't accept that our brothers and sisters are being forced out from their land. These people have been forced out already, and then they're being forced out again. They've been moving up and down this Gaza Strip for the last 15 months. It just won't tolerate. It will literally, put the flames up in these countries by 100%. The rulers are clearly, they know that. There's that element. The second element is that the rulers just don't want them. We don't want them to be a problem in our lands, because imagine if these Palestinians, 2 million Palestinians, move into Egypt, Jordan and Saudi. Amongst these Palestinians, in their heads, they're looking at, there are people there who do not like the leaderships in these countries, and they may turn against us in this, because they may create problems for us in this, because they may make our populace agitated that, look, we Palestinians have been moved out from Al-Aqsa, we've been moved out from the Holy Land. So they're worried about their own thrones. That's the second point, which is that they're worried about what these, i.e., elements the Palestinians contain. Remember, you have Hamas there, you have Islamic Jihad there, you have scholars there, you have people who have been effectively defending their homes for the last 100 years, generation on generation, and now they're being moved into what they will regard as traitorous rulers who have helped the Israelis bombard us, and we're in your land. So how do you control them? They won't be controlled. So they're worried about their own thrones. There's that element of it. The third element of it is, it gives the rulers a chance, in my view, to push the two-state solution. See, what they've all been saying is, so I was watching the Saudi ambassador of UK in an interview with the LBC. He couldn't wait to say two-state solution. We need to all go back to a two-state solution. We need to all go back to a two-state solution. They're all articulating this. We need to work to a viable Palestinian state and a viable Israeli state. What that means is they want to legalize the occupation. They're more than happy for Israel to stay there, occupy the Muslim lands. And when we say two-state solution, remember, the Palestinian state will be a toothless state. No army, the police will be controlled, all of this type of stuff. It's not a proper state in the way we understand. So it's basically one state having the upper hand over the other one. That's what they're articulating, and it gives them a chance to say that. So this is the solution, and then it looks like at least my ruler in those countries, they're standing up. It looks like they're saying something productive for once in their life. Do you see it? Whereas actually they couldn't care less. They will agree to a two-state solution because they know that is the policy of the powerful nations. So we can articulate that. They will never ever say, actually, the whole of Israel is an occupying force. The whole of the occupation has to, and that land should be rightly returned to its inhabitants. They will never articulate that position. That is the crux
Going
of the
on
matter.
to America's image, because I want to leave the...
What
They had a
image?
good image once upon a
What
time
image?
in the 40s, but America's image out there in the world, because we saw that, look, these institutions, the UN, the ICC, these are meant to be they're meant to be the institutions that govern the world. This is what everyone's supposed to be using when they have problems. But obviously we know when it came to Putin, sanction him anywhere he goes, we'll arrest him and whatnot. But now when it's come to their ally and friend, they're willing to sanction them, not just them, their family as well. They're willing to sanction them and their family, cut funding and all the rest of it. So how badly, we know Israel's image is totally destroyed, right? How badly is the when I say the American image, the image really what I'm talking about is the democratic values, the freedoms, and human rights and all of that. How badly is that damaged now?
They've completely destroyed their image with their own hands. See, their image of America, of Europe as well, of the Western world, was already threadbare. People haven't forgotten Abu Ghraib. People haven't forgotten Guantanamo Bay. People haven't forgotten what you did in Afghanistan and what you did in Iraq. People haven't forgotten what you did in Libya. People haven't forgotten that you supported these tyrants across the Muslim world who oppressed their people for decades and decades and decades.
People haven't even forgotten
People
Vietnam
haven't forgotten
yet.
this type of stuff. Vietnam. Then comes along this. Now, in some senses, what happened in Gaza is unique because of globalization, because of the technology. Because we saw live exactly what they were doing to these beleaguered people. I mean, what kind of animal must you be to allow your ally to stop medicines going in where children are having to be operated on without
I think
anesthetic?
that's a dishonor to the animals.
Do you see? I mean, probably they're a hyena, yeah? That's how much the image of America has absolutely been tarnished. Nobody takes it seriously. International law doesn't mean anything. You know, it's been... If it was a toilet paper, people wouldn't wipe their backside with it because they might catch something from it. Human rights doesn't mean anything anymore. The ICC is a joke. The ICC is the biggest joke. The International Criminal Court. There is nothing international about it. It's just got a nice name. America has sanctioned a court. Like, the court is supposed to be the highest authority. A government is sanctioning a court. Where is the uproar from the European Union? Where is the uproar from the rest of the world? No one said anything. These prosecutors and their families are being sanctioned. It's like what the mafia does. I mean, you know, Trump will make the mafia look bad in Italy. They'll think, oh my God, it's better than we are at what we're supposed to do. That's how far he's gone. To the extent that he's talking openly about ethnically cleansing a people, 2 million people. The leader of the free world is going around telling everybody on national TV in unequivocal terms that I am going to ethnically cleanse Gaza. Where is the response from the rest of the world? Where is the response from the Prime Minister of the UK? Where is the response from the French Prime Minister or President? Where is the response from Olaf Scholz? Where is the response from van der Leyen? Where is the response from Canada? Where is the response from Australia? No one has said. The United Nations, where is their response? America has a veto. It vetoes whatever it likes, doesn't make it pass. So what's the point of these institutions? Everyone can see it. Even if there was a blind man, just by listening to it, he'll know that this stuff means absolutely nothing. And that's why, at the moment, you don't see people trying to beat the drum of we need democracy, we need human rights, we need to follow international law. People don't take these things seriously. Just look and laugh at it and think, you must be joking. That's why Trump is just acting like a thug. Just going around saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. We're the most powerful nation. What are you going to do about it?
Just to end the discussion on Gaza, what should Hamas's response be? Because they're between a rock and a hard place. Because, look, if they give the hostages, yeah, they're lost because now they have nothing. So what's going to stop them from coming in anyway? We got everything we want now. You got nothing to stop us. Then if they don't, they got bombs. These, you know, their people are going to get killed, probably worse than before. Because if we remember, there was a little ceasefire last time, a little one, yeah, and then their response was even more devastating than the beginning of October the 7th. What should Hamas's response be?
You know, it's hard for, I mean, it's difficult for me, yeah, thinking about a person sitting here and telling people who have suffered so much what they should do. Because it's like, it's not my children or it's not my family that is basically losing their life. Really, if you think about it, Hamas, they've struggled for 15 months. They've basically, in an image sense, they've basically showed the world that all this nonsense about Israel being this strong, powerful nation with an IDF, the best military in the world, and all this type of stuff is absolute rubbish. So they've already done the damage. In terms of whether they should release the hostages or not, even if they release the hostages, so let's say they continue releasing the hostages and they make it through this phase to the second phase, once Israel gets these hostages back, they will probably start resuming. So once the second phase is over and they get the hostages back, they will start resuming, because Benjamin Netanyahu, even if they don't kill en masse as they have done for the last 15 months, they will kill in their 10s and their 20s, and it will never make it onto the news like they've been doing for the last 2-3. So either way, Hamas, the Palestinian people, will suffer. It's just what's the extent of the suffering. That's what you're actually looking. Really, I don't expect much from Hamas because they're limited, they're a militia. The question to ask ourselves is, why are not the neighboring region, the neighboring countries helping the Palestinian people? Why isn't Egypt, which shares a border with the Gaza Strip, not helping the Palestinian people? Jordan, which I think has 1 million Palestinians living in Jordan anyway, not helping the Palestinian people. And I'm talking about the leadership, I'm talking about the armies. Why are you not sending in a peacekeeping mission, saying we are going to send in a peacekeeping mission and to help the Palestinian people? Where is Turkey in this? No one's talked about Turkey. Why isn't Turkey? Remember, this man, he's supposed to be, the Mujaddid, the Caliph, all of this type of stuff. Why hasn't he done anything to help the Palestinian people? And I'm talking about meaningful stuff. They're not condemn them. My mum can condemn. My mum's 80. She can condemn Israel. It doesn't mean anything. You have to send in a peacekeeping mission to protect the Palestinian people against these barbarians of the IDF who kill men, women and children. So the onus actually isn't on Hamas. Hamas is just a militia or a fighting force which is trying to liberate its land and fight back against an occupation. These are not trained fighters in the way we understand. Whereas you have armies in that region. What? Forget even the fighting for a second. Why is Turkey supplying Israel with water, with oil, with gas before this kicked off? Why is the trade going up? Why hasn't everyone boycotted? The Muslim Ummah has gone to great extents boycotting companies that fund Israel. Why haven't the Muslim governments done the same thing, saying we will not trade with Israel? We can get trade from somewhere else. We will not trade with Israel. Would not survive. And this is the thing. The onus shouldn't be on an organization. That's what Hamas are. They're an organization. The onus should be on the governments in those regions to help 2 million people who have been slaughtered, who have been starved, who they don't know where to turn. They can't. There's no escape from this. They're stuck between the river and Israel, and yet, for some reason, people are looking and thinking, right, it's Hamas's fault. What can Hamas do? Why do you want Hamas to do anything? It doesn't make any sense. On the contrary, you want the governments in the region to help them, to say, we will help the Palestinian people, we will send in a peacekeeping mission. We will not allow Israel to attack. Keep in mind, Egypt and Qatar are the mediators. They are the ones mediating between Hamas and Israel. So if Egypt can mediate, why can you not help these people? Why can't you not send in a peacekeeping? Your soldiers are literally on the border in Rafah. You share a border, a strip with this strip. Right? You're just standing there watching while the bombing happens. I wouldn't be surprised if they can see the smoke coming up while Israel bombs.
Just to put my 2 pence worth in this is, I want to make it very clear that I couldn't care what Hamas do in sense of whether they release the soldiers, the hostages, or whether they keep them. Because like you said, what do you want them to do? Yeah, they can't do anything. And they've done the one thing that no one else has done. They've protected their population as much as they can. And knowing the population of Gaza, I know they know the ayah in their head, no matter what, they got it, which is that oppression is worse than death. They would rather fight to the end than be oppressed. They've seen the oppression for the last 100 years. They know what the oppression is. They will fight to the end. And that's exactly what's going to happen, as far as I'm concerned. But even if they choose to give it, I don't blame them. What do you want them to do? They can't do anything. So I think our listeners should really be clear on this. Don't look at it as, if Hamas gives these soldiers, you gave up your only advantage. No, They didn't, yeah, because there is no advantage for that. It doesn't exist.
Israel is not it's not a reliable, a trustworthy party to anything. It doesn't accept any norms. It doesn't, even by their standards, i.e. Western standards, it doesn't accept any norms. It will sign a treaty and then continue killing the next day and happily lie about it. This is the problem. We're trying to deal with Israel as if it's a normal state where if we agree to something, it will have some sense of honor that it will stick to its agreements. Israel does not operate like that. In Israeli eyes, in the eyes of these Zionists, they look at the Palestinians, they look at whether the Palestinians are Muslims or Christians, and they see them as your animals, your Amalek, you need to be killed. That's all they see. The West Bank, no, we haven't covered that much, but in the West Bank, they've been killing anyway, and they've been using the thugs of the PA to do the same thing, killing people. So this idea that Israel is someone you can negotiate with, you can talk to, and you can reason with, doesn't exist. It's for the birds. The reality is Israel is an occupying force filled with terrorists. They will happily kill men, women and children in their hundreds of thousands if they could, and they wouldn't batter an eyelid, and they'll just move on to the next. So Israel is not an honest broker in this, nor is America. They're not honest brokers. Anyone who treats them like that, you're going to have a problem. You're going to get stung. And that's one thing we've learnt over the last 15 years and longer. Biden has, before Trump, Biden's been talking about, human rights and, we want to bring a peaceful solution. And then he's been signing the checks off where these bombs have been killing American aid workers.
The conclusion
And
is that regardless whatever Hamas chooses, is going to be a difficult one. And we can expect a lot of bloodshed, whether that's a lot, which is, I think, is most likely, or whether that is, like you said, it could be in the 10s and 20s. They could even use starvation as a tool. Sometimes maybe it's not worth, doing this and destroying more of our international image, but then Netanyahu will have a problem. But we could starve them. We could slowly starve them. Like, what do they have in Gaza? What do they have left? So we'll see what happens on Saturday. Obviously, we'll do a podcast again at some point, and we'll re-look at all of this and see where it's gone forward. Now, we are going to link some of this to a bigger goal that America has, but I'll save that for the end. Now, going into Syria, which is just across the border, it kind of Israel has issues there as well. America has plans for it and whatnot. Now, we've seen Jolani. He's gone to do Umrah. He's been talking to everyone. He's been talking to Putin. Just the other day, he was spoken to Putin. He's spoken to the Americans. He's had a podcast with the British. So, brother Abu Shanks, what's been happening in Syria? Are we seeing the making of an agent? Are we seeing someone who's doing very crude moves to make his country?
Sounds like Trump, eh? I mean, so like you mentioned, he's been doing the tour. He went to meet MBS. That must have been, I don't know, I would have found it awkward because at one point these guys were enemies. You have to imagine, Jalani, the Mujahid, and MBS, they wanted him dead. MBS and the Saudis wanted him. Rory Stewart, who you're talking about, who did the podcast with Alistair Campbell, they were both fighting in Iraq at the same time. Rory Stewart for the British, Jolani for ISIS or Al-Qaeda at the time in Iraq. Obviously, he's gone and met Putin, or he's had a chat with Putin. He's gone, I think, to some of the other Gulf countries as well. Now, what's happening at the moment is, if you look at the media coverage, they're basically cleaning up his image. What they're doing is they're making him look like a reasonable statesman. They're making him look like he's someone we can deal with. Jolani at the moment, Ahmed al-Shara, he is interested in one thing and one thing only, which is he wants sanctions lifted on Syria. Because he realizes that if we can lift sanctions, then we can have an economic trade and we can investment in that. He is desperate for the economic sanctions to be lifted. In terms of when we talk about whether he's an agent or not, you see, when people listen to that word, what comes to mind, though, when we say agent, he's a guy that sits in a room and he laughs and smokes, and then he turns around and said, yeah, me and America are best friends. Whatever the Americans or the British or whoever tell me, I'm going to listen to them.
In other words, the king of tomato,
the king of tomato, even the king of tomatoes, yeah. And so that's not what we mean by agent. Yeah, that's like a Hollywood image of agent needs to be understood in a more broader sense, which is that the world dominant powers, which is America, Europe, they will draw red lines for countries, especially third world countries, second world, and across the world, and they will expect, they will demand that rulers in these countries, in these regions, operate within those red lines. And as long as you operate within those red lines and you are not a threat to the American, to the global world order that has been set up, they won't bat an eyelid with you. So think of some of the countries that America historically has had problems with and has gone to war. So as an example, they fought the Taliban for 20 years. Then they signed a treaty with the Taliban in a negotiation, and the Taliban came back into power, and they basically told the Taliban in Afghanistan, we expect you to operate within these parameters. You can't upset the international world order. You can't do anything to undermine it. And in the last couple of years, even though Afghanistan as a country has been moving forward, they haven't done anything to upset the world order. They haven't, the rulers in that country haven't done anything to criticize the Americans in the sense of the way they're running the world. Even when Ayman al-Zawahiri, who was in Afghanistan, was killed there, and America violated Afghan a few words of condemnation, and that was it. And this is what you will see with Ahmad al-Shara, which is that he will operate within the parameters that have been set. So as an example, yes, he may criticize Israel in the future, but he will not do anything to undermine what Israel as an occupation, what Israel has done as an occupation. Yes, he will say, as an example, you should treat the Palestinians like that, but don't be surprised if in the future you find that they are also supplying minerals or water or something that Israel needs. Israel currently occupies, and this is where actually Jolani is from, the Golan Heights, i.e. Jolani is Golan, yeah? He was born there, but he then moved to Saudi. He has said, some of our land has been occupied. Israel bombed Syria. He hasn't issued any words of condemnation. Now, at the moment, what you will find from the public is what the Taliban are getting, which is goodwill. The Muslim Ummah, they will look at it and think, look man, Syria has been through 14 years of war, another 50 years of dictatorship. They're in no position to do anything other than just build their country. In the same way, Afghanistan is, 2 decades of war, then it's had the Soviet invasion, it's had the invasion, just leave them alone, let them try and build their country. We can't expect much. But in a few years, in due time, when things do get better, and they will, because, when you're not at war, the only way is up. You can't really get any work. People will start asking, hold on a second, what is this man, Ahmed Shara, doing? Why is he not helping the Palestinians? Like they did with Erdogan. Remember when Erdogan first became the ruler in Egypt, in Turkey, lots of people said he's trying to deal with the secularists, he's trying to deal with the army. Now he's been in power for many, many, many years. I think more than a decade. What's he done? He's consolidated power in that country. What's he done for the Palestinians? Nothing. On the contrary, he's still supplying, like I said before, to Israel. This is the problem Ahmad al-Shara will have if he doesn't stand up for what's happening. And for him, it's down the road. He has a reason to get involved in this because Israel does occupy the Golan Heights. But he just, at the moment, people are reluctant to criticize him because of the fact that they've just come out of a war or a dictatorship. So he's got the goodwill. But in reality, he actually hasn't even issued any condemnation about what's happened. Zero, unfortunately. He's just interested in, I need to build my country, I need to move Syria forward. Syria first.
Just to be unpopular a bit, I think sometimes we just have to call things out as it is, which is, yes, we know you went through dictatorship. Yes, we know there was 14 years of war. And I know it's easy to also say, sitting here in the Western world. But sometimes, you have to do the hard thing, which is, look, you have to stand up now. Yeah, the Muslim Ummah has been suffering crazy everywhere. Name me a Muslim country that, look what's happening in Sudan, what's happening to our Chinese brothers and sisters, Xinjiang, what's happening in Kashmir. But what seems to happen is the repeat. It's like the repeat button's on. Even if you look at Bangladesh, we take over, we get rid of the tyrant, and then we just pop in another tyrant like Sisi. Yeah, we may even put in a good guy like Mursi, may Allah be pleased with him. He tried his best, but his hands were tied. And this, we could say, it stems down to that we do the hard part. We think we do the hard part, but in my view, we've done the necessary part, but not the hard part. The hard part is, how do we implement Islam? Implement Islam. We need to do things not in a nationalistic way. If Syria wants to save Syria, it will never save Syria. If Syria wants to save the Ummah, it will save the Ummah, yeah, as one block. But what we're seeing every single time, somehow, some way, we do the necessary part, which is hard in itself, to get rid of the tyrant, to get rid of the oppression, but then we somehow fall straight back into, even if it wasn't a dictatorship, we fall back into a nationalistic state that has no power or will of its own.
The reason we tend to do that is because when we're coming into power, we start making deals. So as remember how Jolani Ashara came into power, it was because the Turks were telling him, and the Turks basically said to him, go, we're unhappy with Bashar because he hasn't accepted to take the Syrians back and he wants all the land. Now start making your way. And then they suddenly realized that the regime is so weak, it fell very quickly. And there's no independence. There's no vision for, this is what I want for my country based on my vision. Somebody else telling us, either through proxy or directly, what plan they have for our region. It's the most weirdest thing. The sacrifices have been made by the Mujahideen of Syria. They're the ones who have suffered. Their families have suffered. The Syrian people have suffered for 14 years. But after we get power, the benefit seems to go to someone else. So what was all these sacrifices for? Why did you bother? And we just keep going through this cycle all the time because we haven't learned, hold on a second, we need to be independent. We are not going to be told by the Americans or the Turks or whoever on what we should have in that region. We are going to base it on our values. And the weirdest thing is, you can talk about Arabs, you can talk about Bengalis, you can talk about Indonesians. The one thing that unites that region is Islam. It's Muslims. If you look at it from that perspective, and even if Ahmed al-Shara just said, I condemn Israel for killing civilians in Palestine, you will find that the Ummah will support him even more. This is the thing that these rulers, even if they looked at it from self-interest, they don't seem to understand. If I want to be really popular, sentiment do I have to play to? These are all Muslims. If I stand on the cause of Islam, I will have not just the backing of my population, I will have the backing of populations throughout the world, effectively 2 billion people. I will be popular amongst almost 2 billion people. It just doesn't resonate with them because they're so concerned about what America thinks, what Europe thinks, especially America. They're literally like, okay, we need to keep the Americans on side. And that's what, just to link it right back to the beginning, that's exactly what Trump's realized. We're the most powerful nation on earth. We can do what we like. The rest of these people are our agents, i.e. they'll listen to us, and if they don't, we'll put them in line. That's the way he's literally going about it, like that. Whereas previous presidents, barring Trump when he was president the first time, they were a bit more tactful because they realized, even though that may be true, we can't operate like that. It makes us look bad. He got rid of the facade and said, it doesn't matter. We're the most powerful nation. We can do what we like. Every other nation is trying to pander to them.
All right, so just to wrap it up, let's talk about the American plan in the region. Now we know America has, its biggest problem isn't Gaza, isn't Syria. Its biggest problem is, so from every analysis that we've seen, is that America right now, all it wants to do is resolve this issue in the Middle East. Yeah, Syria's, it could have been a problem, but they resolved it very quickly. Yeah, the issue right now, we need all these Arab countries to recognize it. Yeah, we know that there's a huge plan that they had, where effectively they want a Security Council in the Middle East, which will deal with any issues in the Middle East. The names that are popping out in the council are Turkey, Israel, Saudi, Iran, 2 others that I'm not too sure about, I've kind of forgotten, but there's meant to be 6 Security Council, basically states that will deal with any issues in the Middle East. And one of the reasons they want to bring Iran into this, because Iran doesn't quite fit Asia and it doesn't quite fit the Middle East. But with this Security Council, they're able to bring Iran into the fold, and that way America can just deal with a region, because Iran now will be part of a region. So because that way America doesn't have to deal with Iran as an interstate, it can deal with it as a region. And naturally in a region, you don't want anyone too powerful. You want all of them to be fairly equal. So Iran at some point will have nuclear weapons just to keep Israel at bay. They won't give these weapons to Egypt, and they won't give it to Saudi purely because, whereas historically Iran, even during the Khilafah time, there was always a problem. So they always caused some sort of problems. There was always issues between the Shia element and the Sunni element. So they're controllable as far as they're concerned. So that's what America's game is in the Middle East. That look, in this place, you lot deal with things. That way, I don't have to be bogged down with you, so I can go and concentrate on China. Right now, they just to solve this issue is let's solve the Palestinian issue. Now that could be solved by what you're saying. Let's create this two-state solution. Let me be really extreme, and then come back to the two-state solution and finish it off, and everyone will recognize them and they can work together and deal with their issues, or we can just ethnically cleanse, whichever one works. Round it up is, when we're looking at that, what should the Muslims take away? Because we want to give them something. We don't want to be all, oh man, we're finished, man. We as a ummah, forget it, man. Wahan is in our heart now. Just live your life. Read Quran, Ramadan, pray tahajjud, and inshallah Allah accepts our weakness and we get into Jannah. What should the Muslims take away?
You see, I was thinking about that the other day. Yeah? One of the things you notice across the globe, which is that yes, America's got plans and this, but one thing that unifies people across the world is people are looking for an alternative. Trump came in on the basis of change. Obama did the same thing actually. He came in on the basis of change. Trump came in on the basis I'm going to make America great again. What does that mean? Is that America's down in the dumps. His image has been, the way the world has been organized isn't working for billions of people. There's people across the world looking at thinking, even in the West, millions of people thinking, this doesn't work. The system and the way you've set it up doesn't work. I'm not seeing any benefits. I'm working hard, I'm paying my taxes, and I'm still struggling day to day to day. This isn't working the way you've set it up. Countries across the globe are looking at it, the way you've set up the international world order doesn't work. We're not benefiting. My life isn't improving. Now, all of that has created this mood for change, and that's why people are willing to give new things a chance. Trump being the new thing. Even Zelensky, the comedian, was a new thing, as an example, isn't it? We're in the UK. In the UK, Nigel Farage, they're talking about him becoming the Prime Minister in the near future.
Geert Wilders in Holland.
Geert Wilders. We are willing to try different things. Modi in India, by the way, isn't it? Yeah? We are willing to try different things. What does that mean? Is that we need to offer Islam to the rest of the world as an alternative way of living. We need to tell the rest of the world, actually, Islam is able to solve your problems, Muslim or not. And the good thing is people are looking for it. But we need to articulate that. We need to carry that to them. That's one thing. Yeah? Another thing that we need to understand, especially in our regions, is, like I said, we can talk about, yes, we've managed to get rid of a lot of rulers, but unfortunately others have come in and the system has still presided. The agency to the West has still presided. However, one thing it shows is that the Ummah now knows how to get rid of rulers. We've done it over and over again in Tunisia, in Libya, in Egypt, in Syria, in Bangladesh, and in other places. Again and again, the Muslim Ummah has done it. Before that, people used to think these tyrants will be there forever. Some of them have been there for 30 years, 20 years, 40 years. Nothing's ever going to change. You don't hear that anymore, that actually we can't get rid of them. The thing we haven't learned is, right, how do we get Islam into position? But we have learned how to get rid of them. So the thing that the Ummah needs to figure out for herself is that, look, we need to get Islam into power. How do we do that? That conversation needs to happen amongst our people, amongst our intellectuals, amongst our academics and our scholars. And they need to bring it down to the ground. This is how it's done. But the thing we should be proud of is that actually we are capable of change. We can bring change in our region. And the thing to think about is, after all that we've seen in Gaza, and the fact that the Muslim Ummah responds as one, even though she has been knocked left, right, center, pillar to post, even then she is holding on to Islam in these difficult situations, should actually give us strength. The reason I say that is because look at the non-Muslims. They are looking at the people of Gaza and thinking, there's something about this Islam, man. And people have converted seeing that. And this is Islam that doesn't have a state, that the Ummah is in a weak position, yet she is still able to project her strength. Now imagine it was done as a state, a real state, like the Ottomans or during the time of Prophet ﷺ, or imagine it was done like that, the impact it will have. So,
Jazakallah, brother Abu Shanks. I think we got a little understanding there. In fact, that's a good idea for another podcast. Maybe in the next podcast we can say, what is this alternative that Islam can bring to the world? So maybe we can look at all the ills in the Muslim world, and then how Islam will the Khilafah and Islam will deal with these problems, maybe for another podcast, or we will do another analysis based on whatever the situation is. Obviously, we do our podcast once a month. If you enjoyed our podcast, please do subscribe, write something in the comments, hit the like button, share, and give us topics for us to discuss, because we're average Muslims that want to show the world, or let the world listen to what average Muslims are thinking through an Islamic lens. Till the next time, this is that brown guy and brother
Abu Shanks
giving our salams. Till the next time, inshallah, we'll see you for the next discussion.